Welcome everyone to Not That Media. My name is John, and in this new series of videos entitled The 12 Scares of Christmas, starting December Friday the 13th, 2024 and running till Christmas Eve, I'm going to be giving you 12 film recommendations, all of them Christmas movies, all of them horror, some a little scarier than others, some a little bit more family friendly, something for everyone I hope. I've made this list, I've checked it twice, you better watch out and I hope you're ready to slay, because come along with me as I start The 12 Scares of Christmas. In Scrooged, Bill Murray is television executive Frank Cross, the meanest, most selfish man on earth. He will stop at nothing to increase his network's ratings, even if it means that his staff works on Christmas Eve. So it will take three spirits, the ghost of Christmas past, present and future, to show Frank that he needs to change. So Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good fright. Here we go, another one of my 12 scares of Christmas. Now some of you out there might have seen the description, might have seen the icon and said, hang about, John, Scrooged isn't a horror film, why is this on this list? Well, let me put this out in the atmosphere. Sometimes, and it's the same with my 31 Days of Halloween, I think that when you're enjoying horror and horror-related movies, I think that actually it's important to remember the spectrum. Every film doesn't need to be a Halloween or a Terrifier or guts being thrown at the camera. Sometimes some of the scarier films are actually those films that are a little bit more family friendly, and I think Scrooged falls into this category. It is based, of course, on the absolute classic of A Christmas Carol, and the Christmas Carol is the ultimate ghost story. We still to this day watch it, read it, listen to it. It has been remade, readapted, changed so many times that it is just a absolute institution, A Christmas Carol. It is a ghost story. It is a scary story. A man who needs to fix his ways is terrorized by ghosts who show him his past, present and future in an effort to make him mend his ways. And every adaptation of The Christmas Carol you can watch, and I'm even going to say the Muppet Christmas Carol and the Jim Carrey Disney Christmas Carol, they portray certain characters and certain scenes in scary ways. The Ghost of Christmas Events Yet to Come is a scary, iconic character. It is literally in most of the adaptations the Grim Reaper himself. So based on that logic, I wanted to include A Christmas Carol in this first 12 Scares of Christmas because it's a classic, and I love the fact that horror films has the ability, and I think it is fairly unique to horror and maybe sci-fi a little bit, to take well-known stories and readapt them into the world of horror. And this will not be the only time this happens on my list. There's two or three which takes a traditional Christmas story and spins it on its head into something else, and that's what Scrooged is all about. This is not set in Victorian England, it is not set in Victorian America, it is not Victorian in the slightest. Frank Cross is a 1980s media mogul when it comes to his network television. He is the very best. Bill Murray comes to the table as the Scrooge character as one of the most uncaring, malicious, egotistical SOBs you could ever want to meet, and he is amazing for it. He is funny, witty, you are laughing at him, with him, as he is doing these deplorable things. A man who's one of the guys from Police Academy, on a side subject, a man has the audacity to say that maybe his Christmas Scrooge advert is a little bit scary, so he is returned by being escorted out of the building within 5 minutes on Christmas Eve and fired, loses his Christmas bonus and loses his livelihood. And it's exactly the tone you need to be told at the beginning. This is a man who needs to be punished. Frank Cross needs to be punished. So when this film comes along and we are introduced to the ghosts, it follows the archetype of A Christmas Carol virtually verbatim, but in a modern setting. Now, the reason I wanted this one on my list is when I was younger, and I do think that, as I say, we need to remember the children at Christmas, we need to remember the family entertainment. Not every horror film has to be Terrifier, Halloween or something like that. We can have fun with our horror and our scares, and Scrooge is all about that. But I remember when I was little, I found Scrooge to be genuinely frightening. There are a good number of scenes that I was genuinely creeped out by and frightened. And the main one that I want to talk about today is the Jacob Marley equivalent scene. It is established early in the film that Frank Cross's old best friend and the original president of the network, whose name I can't remember, I'm really sorry, died. Had a heart attack on a golf course and died. And Frank took over everything. So when Frank has been to an awards ceremony about caring and love and leaves the award on the seat because it's made of hollow plastic and he doesn't care, when he's stolen the cab of an old lady and he's done all these horrible things, he goes up to his his office to have a drink and relax. At that point, the walls start to shake. He shouts, he pulls out a gun saying, you know, there's no one here, go away. And the doors explode. And Jacob Marley, or the equivalent character, I'm going to refer to him as Jacob Marley, that's not the name of the character in the film, but the Jacob Marley character appears and stands there, and he is a cadaver. This is a character that has walked straight out of any Living Dead films, any House movie, any Tom Savini level of creature feature movie, and he is standing there. He's covered in cobwebs and filth. You can see the skull, you can see the protruding pieces of his skull, his jawbone coming through, and he's standing there with his golf bag and his golf clothes, and he simply says, "Hiya, Frank." And of course, as a child, this was terrifying. This isn't fun, this isn't silly. Bill Murray's reaction is where the comedy comes, but children sometimes struggle with sarcasm, and I think Bill Murray's level of sarcasm is fantastic, but I think it can go over the head of children. So this scene for me when I was very young was really frightening. This Marley character wheels himself over to the drinks cabinet, gets himself a bottle of Bacardi, starts tipping it, and Bill Murray shoots him in the back 6 times. Terrifying. You see the bullets going in, you see the holes blowing out, and again, goes over the heads of children, but this skeleton, cadaverous kind of guy turns around and says, "I don't mind you firing at me, Frank, but go easy on the Bacardi." He then turns back around, and as Bill Murray and the audience are processing this sight, a golf ball comes out the back of his head, a socket opens, the ball falls out the back of his head, and a mouse comes out of his head. He then turns around, toasts him, drinks, and literally the old West joke of the bullet holes, all the drink comes out, and he just goes, "Ah, thanks, Frank," and all this kind of stuff. And then he proceeds to step forward saying, "Look at me, I'm a worm feast, you know, I was adored by men, loved by women," to which Bill Murray laughs and says, "You paid for the women." And he knocks him to the ground, and he takes his glasses off, and he reveals that he has no eye sockets. And he starts to shout at Frank, saying, "This is your last chance, you're going to be visited by 3 ghosts, don't waste the time, here they come," and all this kind of stuff. It's terrifying, is what I would say. Bill Murray is on the floor with his jaw open, this eyeless cadaver is reaching for him, grabs him by the throat, picks him up, takes him over to the window, and via supernatural forces pushes him through the glass. There's that terrifying kind of Children of the Corn-esque music playing in the background, that kind of little children going, "Ah!" It's got this really scary kind of music to the background. I'm sure that sounded really terrifying. Bill Murray is crying and screaming, "Please, they're going to think I'm a suicide, I'm going to think I'm a suicide." And he's laughing, and his arm breaks, chunks of flesh and bone are breaking off, the arm is snapped clean off, and Bill Murray falls to his death, and this horrendous cadaverous ghost of Marley with his arm through the window, what's left of it, is laughing and simply says, "Merry Christmas, Frank," and then he falls, slams into his chair, and Bill Murray realises, was it all a dream? He's safe, he's back in the room, nothing's exploded, no gunshots, and then he realises, is he okay? And then the phone starts to call itself. He gets his drink, he puts his drink in his mouth, he has a massive mouthful of his whiskey, and an effect that to this day I still can't work it out, because Bill Murray's mouth is open when he starts this scene. He tips it in, and then the golf ball comes out of his mouth, he lets go, and it bounces up and down, telling you that no, it was not a dream. This scene for me, as a child, as an adult, I laugh at the sarcasm, the wittiness, but I still have that kind of sense memory in my mind that iteration of Marley was really frightening, really good, straight out of, like I say, an old horror film, and why I wanted to include it on this list. There are a number of moments like that, and I don't want to spoil them. The film follows pretty much the normal narrative of A Christmas Carol, but in a modern setting. It's got a fantastic cast. The Ghost of Christmas Past is funny, but I find him really frightening. If you've ever been frightened of a New York cabbie or getting in a cab with a complete stranger, he is the antithesis of this. This iteration of The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is really scary yet again. It kind of takes this effect. It takes the Grim Reaper image, but replaces the skull face with a television screen, and is horrendously changing images to skulls and screaming and Bill Murray and fire and worms and all these kind of things. He's really scary. The film has a number of moments which for me is on the knife edge of scary, but it's safe scary. It's the kind of film that you can enjoy as a family, and okay, it might generate a few scares, but it's very funny, well worth watching. It ends on a happy note because of course it's A Christmas Carol, so no spoilers, but everyone knows how A Christmas Carol ends. So this one might have been a little bit out of left field. I wanted to recommend it because I really do enjoy this film. I think it doesn't get the attention or love it deserves. This film has got a little bit of everything for everyone. As I say, it is a comedy, it is a Christmas film, and it is a horror film as far as I'm concerned. It is a perfect blend. I know some people out there, they get perturbed by the idea of a Christmas horror film or a comedy horror and things like that. This is a really good one. I really enjoy it. It's got a great cast, great effects, great makeup, great music, great direction. It looks fantastic. Bill Murray was on top of the world in the late 80s, obviously riding that success of Ghostbusters. Scrooged is in line with that kind of level of scares and comedy in terms of that. I think Ghostbusters arguably could be considered a little bit scarier, but as I say, make your mind up yourself. There's a lot of humour in Scrooge that as a child you would never ever pick up on, and as an adult you kind of laugh and go, wow, that's actually pretty dark and pretty good, pretty scary. I really like this film. It's a strong recommend from me. So, until next time, stay scared.
Oh my gosh. Does that suck?